Hello friends on the internet, it's nice to see you all again, even though I'm not seeing any of you, but I'm pitching you all in my head, standing here watching me look at a bunch of pieces of cardboard. I appreciate you tuning into my videos, and welcome to the second video on my channel. I'm going to be starting off with my first, I guess showcase of my decks. I figured that I'd make videos on all my decks. I think it'd be interesting to show what I've made myself and really dive down into the way I like to play the game and the cards that I have in my collection. So I figured I'd start today with Avacyn Angel of Hope. This deck I'd say is about a 6 out of 10 in power. I'd say it's probably the weaker one of my decks. But it's still pretty good, and I've only played it a few times, but I gotta say it's very enjoyable to play. So Avacyn Angel of Hope, we'll start with the commander. It's an 8-mana creature, a legendary creature angel. It has flying, vigilance, and indestructible, and it's an 8/8, which alone is fantastic. So the main goal of my deck is mainly to build up a big board, ramp as fast as I can in mono white, at least ramp, and then play Avacyn, and then just clear everyone's board until they concede. Now I didn't go too heavy on the board wipes as you'd think. I did put some more Angel Tribal in to make it a little bit more fun, because I felt like I wanted to play some big Angel boys. So first off, I want to talk about the land ramp in my deck. So we'll start with the obvious, the given, land tax. 1 mana enchantment. During my upkeep, I can search my library for 3 basic lands if any of my opponents have any more lands than me. That card is amazing. I mean, it's a classic. You just go get a bunch of lands from your deck. It's probably the best land ramp in white. I mean, at least to get lands in your hand and always get your land drops, which is really good. This card combos well with other cards I have in my deck as well, as you'll see in a minute. I got Weathered Wayfarer. This one's pretty good as well. Instead, if I wanted to get one of my utility lands, which I only have so many of, but they're pretty good, I can get it with one of these because I can just search for a land pretty much at any time. It's kind of a cheaper version of land tax that I can use repeatedly. Very effective in my deck though. Then we have Sword of the Animus. Sword of the Animus is fantastic because, I'm getting lands straight onto the battlefield instead of just in my hand. And I get to do this every turn, and it buffs one of my creatures. Usually I want to be buffing this one, because this creature is a commander, and commander damage is a viable way to win in this deck. Then I have Sword of Feast and Famine. Now, a lot of people wouldn't consider this land ramp, more of like a mana doubler. But, I think it kind of counts. Untapping all lands you control and getting to use them again in a deck that is mainly just big flying angels and really expensive cards is really important. This also gives evasion and protection to my commander, which is really good. So yeah. And it also makes, I believe, Avacyn kill in almost 2 hits, which is pretty sweet. Then we have Solemn Simulacrum, a classic. I do have the cool special art, not to flex or anything. Alright, maybe to flex a little bit, but that's okay. Everyone can pimp their decks out here and there every once in a while. But this is a great card. I get a land from my deck, and I get to put on the battlefield, or basic land. And most of the lands in this deck is basic lands anyway. Monocolored decks don't really run any duels because, that's illegal in the game. And you're cheating if you do that, so don't cheat. It's also great because it counts as card draw, and I have so many board wipes that I don't care if this dies. If it gets caught in the crossfire of a board wipe or 2, I just get to draw another card. Alright, and then we have Gapor Ori. I've had this card in my collection waiting for a deck for it to be in for so long. Finally got the chance. Each player may play an additional land on his or her turns. I think that giving your opponent's lands is usually bad, but in mono white there's just not fast enough ramp. So I went with this because, putting extra land is huge in this deck. Now we're on to the artifact ramp. Soul Ring. Don't really gotta say much about that card. I think everyone kind of knows Soul Ring's one of the better cards in this format. Commander is known to talk. Commander players are known to want this card gone. That's how good it is. But you know, Arcane Signet. You know, this card might get traded out for something different, maybe a faster form of ramp. Mainly just because it's just a monocolored deck. I don't really need you know, the command tower type effect. I don't even have command tower in this deck. Like, we'll see, but for now it's a really good card. I mean, 2 mana Signet, get another land, basically. It was pretty good. Commander Sphere, another classic, works as card draw as well. It's the same thing as Arcane Signet, but the card draw is significant in this deck, we'll say. Thran Dynamo, another classic. You pay 4, you get 3. This is really good in this deck, and these rocks are super important too for the way this deck runs, because without the mana, you're never going to cast this. I mean, 8 mana is a steep bargain, and you want as much as you can early on. Nyx Lotus, this makes a ton of white. My commander has 3 in it, 3 devotion in it. I'm playing mono white cards only. Monocolored decks is where this card really shines. I will say, like, I've had this tap for like 13 before. It's crazy. And Hedron Archive, you know, very similar to Commander Sphere, how you can sack it to draw cards. I really like the card draw effect on the rocks in this deck, because card draw, as many know, is not very significant in mono white. It's not very common. It's very lackluster. So I very much take what I can get, you know. Smothering Tide, everyone knows this guy. You gonna pay the 2? You gonna pay the 2? I bet you all hate hearing that. It's like the worst. I don't know. This is a rage-inducing card. I'm getting angry like this guy just thinking about it. I'm like, no, I'm not paying the 2, and then I cry myself to sleep. So I want to pay the 2, but I can't. Gilded Lotus. I will say that this is one of my favorite cards in this game. I don't know what it is about Gilded Lotus. Maybe it reminds me of Black Lotus in a way. Because Black Lotus is just, I mean, it's a we don't got to talk about Black Lotus, but this card is great. 3 mana of any one color, you know, it gives you the white that you need in this deck. I think it's phenomenal. I have it in pretty much all of my decks. We're going to get on to the mana reducers. So these are mostly for, you know, angels, right? Like, I would choose angels on this. And then my commander is 6 mana instead of 7. Or 6 mana instead of 8. Oops. This just makes it way faster to get Avacyn out, which is very important in this deck. It also makes a lot of my big bombs way faster too. This card is underrated in this deck, I will say. Oketra's Monument. White creature spells cost 1 less to cast. I have a lot of creatures in this deck, surprisingly. I guess not surprisingly. I guess it is an angel deck. I guess for a deck that has so many board wipes in it, compared to most, I have a lot of creatures. This is just good. This also reduces the cost of Avacyn, which is great, and like all my other creatures, which I really like also. This one is, I'd say, on par with this, because it makes tokens as well, and tokens is kind of another thing my deck does. I make a lot of small / big tokens, a lot of angels and soldiers. I mean, I think a lot of angel cards just do that, but this one's phenomenal too. Quicksilver Amulet. I haven't actually got to play this card yet, but this card's pretty cool. I have a lot of big angels, like I said, and big creatures. 4 mana for, like, as you'll see down the road, I have an Elish Norn in this deck. Like, 4 mana for an Elish Norn, for example, is pretty good. I mean, it's just okay. It's just all right. It's pretty good. This card, I think I'm excited to see what it does. Since this, as I said, this deck is fairly new, so I do have to play it a little bit more, and it'll probably change a little bit in the future. And the Immortal Sun. The Immortal Sun, I counted this as like a mana reducer, but it's also card draw, which is the next section of my deck that I'm going to be covering, which I really like. It kind of does everything I want. I used to have Cage Sun in place of this, but I realized that this is better because it makes all my spells cost 1 less, including all my artifacts, which is huge. It'll allow me to ramp even faster after playing this. It shuts down planeswalkers, which I don't have a lot of, and it buffs all my creatures, and I get to draw 2 cards on my turn. I just think it kind of does a little bit of everything, and that's why I really like this in this beginning of my card draw section, which is only 3 cards. If that says anything to you about white, it should. And the fact the first card is Endless Atlas, which I think is good in monocolored decks, because 2 mana to draw another card on each turn is pretty sweet, and I have about 26 planes in this deck, something like that, so I'm almost certainly going to have this requirement. I think this deck, or this card in general, is really underrated in monocolored decks. I think that people should run this more. I think, especially, I saw this come out in Double Masters, and I was like, I didn't even know this card existed. I'm really glad I do now, because I'm going to be using it from now on. Mangara, the Diplomat, the only good white card draw ever made in existence, ever. It's the perfect card. It's beautiful. I love him. All right, next card. Vanquisher's Banner. I count this as card draw because I'm probably gonna choose humans or angels for this. I have a good amount of humans in this deck, but I also have a good amount of angels. I think I have a little more angels than humans, but definitely would want to choose angels for this. I mean, for the obvious reasons that I want to slam face with these angels all the time, and I get to draw, cards when I cast creatures. So, like, my commander basically also says when this enters, draw a card, or when you cast this, draw a card. Most of my creatures will just replace themselves in my hands. Let's get into the small guys. Small guys make guys. That's the name of this section. That's what I actually just wrote down, and I remember now what it means. But it's just creatures or cards that make tokens. I like making tokens, especially angels. 4/4 flying angel creature tokens is kind of like a sub theme in a way. I also make a lot of soldiers, but this came out recently in M21. A 1/1 with Vigilance and Lifelink for 1 is good on its own, I gotta say, but I do gain a good amount of life in this deck. Most of my creatures have lifelink, and I'll get to some more life gain down the road, but this requirement of having 7 or more life, more than your life total, is easy to do. Super easy to do in this deck. So every turn I'm just going to be making another angel token, pumping out angels like crazy, and I really like that. And I get to attack with them too. And if I have a bunch of Anthem effects, that's some life gain right there. And I can even get to that with this card. So I think all around, Pope Francis is really having a good day. Alright, Bishop of Wings, speaking of the Pope, here's Bishop of Wings. Here's more of that life gain I was talking about. This card and this card go really good together too, because that gives me life when I make angels. When this dies, this makes me even more tokens, so I just kind of don't ever lose my blockers, and I don't ever really lose my creatures entirely either. So it kind of is like, it's kind of best of both worlds. It's kind of like, it fixes this, it gives me a lot of life, you'd be surprised, 4 life for each angel that enters the battlefield, and it's not non-token either. I make a lot of angel tokens, as you might remember me saying. And I do like making tokens when my tokens die. Here's Luminarch Ascension. Now this card is just good. This isn't even like an angel only card. This card is amazing. At the beginning of each opponent's end step. Now that's insane, right? Each opponent's end step. After 4 opponents' turns, and when you're in Commander, you're playing with 4 people. So that's almost done in 1 rotation. You can just pay 2. Make an angel creature token with flying. That's insane. Insane. This pumps out tokens faster than like any of the other cards in my deck. This is a crazy, crazy card. I love this card. Luminarch Ascension. Alright, and then Resplendent Angel. This one I've played recently. I've had this card for a really long time. Ever since M19. I guess not a super long time, a couple years, but at the beginning of your end step, if you gain 5 more life this turn, you get a 4/4 Angel token with Flying and Vigilance. The Vigilance is huge on this. The other ones don't have Vigilance, but these ones do. And you know, it has this ability to buff itself. So if I have a ton of mana, I can also just swing with this guy and like hit for really hard, which is really cool. And I can protect himself from combat damage. But again, that's 6 mana, so that's unlikely. But the 5 life or more every turn is like easy to do in this deck. It's really effective. Boss Riquette. Here's one of my 2 planeswalkers in this deck. I really like his -2 ability, which makes a bunch of white soldier creature tokens, and I can kind of like, you know, keep getting a ton of tokens every turn. I like that he gives indestructible to my creatures. He can protect my creatures before Avacyn gets out. It also buffs my creatures too, which is really nice. This is a nice ultimate too. You know, we like Anthem effects in this deck because we want to just go like wide and tall kind of at the same time. It's weird how, like, that sounds like it doesn't work, but it does, I promise. Boss Riquette, very nice addition. 3 mana Planeswalker, very good for 3 mana Planeswalker. Emiria Angel, landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a 1/1 white bird creature token with Flying onto the battlefield. I love this because, as you saw, you know, for white, my land ramp, not that bad. Not that bad at all. If I have Sword of the Animist on this thing, every time I attack, I'm getting a land and then a bird. I'm getting a land and a bird, and I'll get 2 lands and birds every turn. Oop, sorry about that. I'll just be pumping up bird tokens like constantly with this card. Like every single turn I'm playing a land. So I'll be playing birds with my lands. Elspeth's Sun's Champion. Here's my second planeswalker in this deck. My 2 of 2. Destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater. This card is phenomenal in this deck. First of all, this +1 is dummy good. 3/1/1 white soldier creature tokens for it to go up in loyalty counters is like, that's unfair. That's like stupid good. This part, if I have Avacyn out and I just wipe the board, good night. You know, good night. And if I get this emblem, that's a great Anthem effect. I get a bunch of small creatures, boom, they get huge and they can fly. I really like that card. I've always wanted to play that too because I've seen this card since I was a kid, and I always thought it was super good, and now I actually get to play it in the deck. Finale of Glory is the last of my token creators. This is pretty self-explanatory. I get, you know, white soldier creature tokens. I want to hit this for 10 or more, so this is basically CMC 12, but I am gonna probably win if I play this and have this out with that big, like the mana to do it is hard, but I can do it. But I think it's worth it to play it. I think making these tokens is really cool. I also just really like this card and the art. It's really like, it's like booyah, you know? Like board wipes. Board wipes are huge. This one doesn't really, you can play this without this and it's still just as good. Basically mass exile. I mean, it's mask like Path to Exiles, pretty much. You just wipe, you exile. The exile is important on this too. I really needed the exile board wipe, and this is the way out of like an Avacyn Mirror or something like that. You know, this is great. This is like Cyclonic Rift for white, in my opinion, but like clearly not as good. Because blue is the best color in the game. Wrath of God, destroy all creatures. I'm just going to show you the next 3 cards while I'm at it. These are just my Wraths. Day of Judgment, Wrath of God, and Shatter the Sky. These 2 are basically exactly the same. So, and we don't really need to touch up on what they do. Just destroy all creatures. Obviously with Avacyn out, you know, I'm not losing anything, but my opponents are losing everything. And that's what really matters in this deck. Shadow of the Sky is pretty cool too. If I don't have Avacyn out and I need to wipe the board, I could draw a card with this too, which is nice. This is definitely preferable over the other two if Avacyn's not out, I will say. Alright, and then we got Settle the Wreckage. Settle the Wreckage is a great card. I've played this since my first commander deck. My first commander deck was Cat Tribal, and I actually had to dismantle it for this, but it's getting rebuilt, so you might see it in the future soon. Settle the Wreckage is basically the same as Winds of Abandon. I don't know how I forgot that card name. It's literally in my deck, but whatever. Exile all attacking creatures target player controls. I really like this because it's tricky. They don't think you're gonna have a board wipe at instant speed. This is the one that does it, and it's exile, so their creatures are just not safe by any means. Indestructible, nada. End hostilities. I really like this as well. It really kind of slams Voltron decks, and it really slams like any like artifact, like equipment based decks. I really like that, and I don't know. It's 5 mana to destroy all creatures, which is like it's worse than these in that means, but you can probably get some good stuff. I mean, everyone's got like Lightning Greaves in their deck, something like that. You know, it's just a little bit more value out of it. Cleansing Nova. This is the same as that, except better. Destroy all artifacts and enchantments is phenomenal. Like, you really got to wipe the problematic cards. And there's not a ton of artifact and enchantment removal in this deck. Something that I would consider is taking this card out and hostilities and putting in like Hour of Revelation, Hour of Devastation, the 6 mana white board wipe that's destroy all non-land permanents and cost 3 sometimes. If you're a real Magic fan, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, you either are a friend of mine supporting me for doing this project, or I don't know what the hell you're doing here. So but thanks for showing up anyway, I guess. Now we're gonna get to a subsection of this called Land Destruction. Now there's only 2 cards in this subsection. I'm just gonna show you them both. We have Fall of the Thran and Armageddon. They both say destroy all lands. These cards are win conditions with this deck. If I have Avacyn out and I play one of these on you, you're not gonna win the game. You're gonna lose, and that's just that. Like, okay, so now we're gonna get on to protection, more of the interaction in this deck, and some stacks pieces as well while we're at it. We're gonna start with Silence, a classic, 1 mana, instant. Your opponents can't cast spells this turn. This is basically if I see I don't have any infinite combos in this deck, unlike my other ones, but if I see my opponents are gonna go off, do an infinite combo, something like that, and I just need to stop them in the moment, or if I'm, you know, gonna start a crazy turn and I don't want anyone touching my stuff, I play this card before. It's got so many uses, it's so flexible, and I really like having Silence in this deck. Mana Tithe, the unpredictable counter spells are great too. No one expects that you have this card. Nobody. Who plays Mana Tithe? It's not even good. That's why it's good. It's good because it's not good, and no one thinks you're gonna play it, if that makes any sense at all. Then I got Giver of Runes. I really like this. This gives my commander evasion as well as protection. This is basically just used to keep Avacyn alive. I don't want her getting exiled. We don't want removal. You know, we can use this to protect our other big creatures as well, if we have them out, or smaller pieces, and it's a repeatable effect, which is what I really like. Repeatable cards are very favorable, I feel like, in Magic than, you know, one-time use cards. Rebuff the Wicked, the other unpredictable counterspell. I like this. This is the same kind of reason I have this card in, except it's the one-time use, but sometimes you gotta counter something, or you need a backup plan. This is mainly to counter any kind of removal on Avacyn, or some of my pieces that I'm gonna have on the board early on. And here we go, going to flex on everyone again with my lightning greaves. You know, this obviously is to get this on Avacyn and get her going. We want to get her hitting people in the face really hard. We want to protect her. I can play this early on. People will think nothing of it. When I play Avacyn and this just goes immediately on her, there's almost no way to remove her from the board. Having Shroud and Indestructible kind of makes it impossible to kill things. It just is not going to happen. Grand Abolisher, here's one of the stack pieces I have. I used to have this in one of my other decks, which I will be making a video on soon. This card is great. This is a card that you use for the reason that I explained for why I have Silence in my deck, but a little bit different. This is just to protect my stuff on my turn. I don't want my shit getting countered. I don't want my cards, you know, going to the graveyard. I want them going on the battlefield. And this helps me make sure that that happens. And that's about it for that. Draenith Magistrate, you know, a lot of people's decks rely on their commanders. Mine included. I think my commander is a very important part of this deck. This just shuts off decks. Like Prosh decks, it's not happening anymore. You know, their commanders are not coming out. They can't cheat cards out by casting them from their deck. You know, if someone does like an Aminatu's Augury, it's not going to do anything because they can't cast cards that they like exile off the top. Stuff like that. It's one of the better modern stacks pieces I think that's come out. Now we're going to get into more... actually, I'm sorry. This is still the same one. But Archangel of the Tides is a wonderful card. 4 mana. This boosts my devotion too. Remember that Nyx Lotus? This card's huge with that. It's got flying. It's a 3/5. It basically makes it so they have to pay 1 if they want to block or attack with each creature, like your opponent's control. Alright, now we're going to get into the single target removal, or just target removal in general. And there's only a few cards in this too, because we're really more board wipe focused. First, we got obviously Path and Swords. The single target exile in white is its thing. I love this. I love both these cards. They should really just go in every deck that has white in them. I feel like they don't even need that much explanation in general. But Heliod's Intervention is very good too. This is the artifact and enchantment removal I have. It also keeps me alive, and I want this when I want to just wipe my opponent's mana. Like, I want to destroy their artifact ramp. I want to destroy all their utility, like artifacts and enchantments. Now we get into what I like to call immortality. We don't want to die. We don't want to die ever. This deck's a little bit slow, so we want to have a big life total, so we don't have to worry about death, and we want to slow down our opponents, as well as making sure they can't win the game and we can't lose the game, as you'll see in a bit. Authority of the Consuls is one of my favorite enchantments in this game, not gonna lie. It's just such good life gain, and you get instances each time an opponent plays a creature. That keeps your life total up, and your opponent's creatures entering the battlefield tapped is so good. So good. Haste is no longer an option, which is wonderful. Paria. This is how I'm feeling when it's 100 degrees in my apartment. I don't live in an office building. Anyway, enchant creature. All damage that would be dealt to you is dealt to enchanted creature instead. I put this on Avacyn, or if I have Avacyn, no, I usually will always put this on Avacyn, or any other indestructible kind of creature. That way, my life total just can't change. I just don't get dealt damage, and that's pretty sweet, I won't lie. Exquisite Archangel, one of my big bombs in this deck. A little bit expensive for a 7 mana 5/5 with flying, but if I lose the game, I get to exile this instead. So it is kind of like a protection, like a layer of protection to just make sure I'm not like gonna die anytime soon. Someone have to remove this and jump through more hoops to kill me, is the sense. It's pretty cool. Platinum Angel, classic card, you know, from M11. It's an oldie, it's a goodie. She's beautiful. She's 7 mana, 4/4 with flying, which is bad, but you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. Alright, now we're going to get into the angels. You know, there's a bunch of angels sprinkled throughout this, keep in mind. This is just the other angels that don't really fit into the other categories, but are just in my deck because they're good angels. Sublime Archangel, this card often makes my commander just kill people outright in one shot. It just buffs one big creature. All your creatures just add on damage, especially if I have a lot of tokens with this out and this. You know, that's just gonna one-shot people for sure. So that's a great card in this deck. Baneslayer Angel is a classic. A lot of keywords: flying, first strike, lifelink, and protection from demons and dragons. The last two don't matter too much, but flying, first strike, lifelink, 5/5 for 5 is sweet. I love that card. Karmic Guide. Karmic Guide is wonderful. Gives you protection from black for the creature. I mean, the creature itself doesn't really matter. It is an angel though, so it will have mana reductions for my other cards, which is really cool. Only thing that it really does is get me a card back from my graveyard to the battlefield, creature card. So, I mean, it's definitely worth it in my deck though, for sure. Blinding Angel. This card I did not know existed until I made this deck. 5 mana for a 2/4 with flying is not great, but whenever it deals combat damage to a player, they skip their next combat phase. That is brutal. Safari Skyblade. You know, sometimes Avacyn gets too expensive. Sometimes you need a backup. This is her. This is the sub. This is that dude that sits on the sidelines, you know, warming up the bench, giving people water, and one day coach says, "You're in, kid." All right, Achroma Angel of Wrath. Speaking of keywords, this one is phenomenal. Flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, protection from black and red. You're gonna get this girl down. She's gonna just start swinging right away. Annihilates basically any creature it comes in contact with. Can stay up as a blocker, and it has pro black and red, so it has evasion and protection, which is pretty sweet. Now let's get into some of the anthem effects that we have in our deck. This is in the same kind of category as my other angels, but plus some non-angel cards. So let's get some Archangel of Thune. I really like that they reprinted this in Double Masters. I feel like this was the time to make this deck because of all the reprints of angel cards in Double Masters, which is really funny. Flying Lifelink. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Pretty self-explanatory, pretty good card. This is a great card. Lyra Dawnbringer. Flying, first strike, lifelink. We love lifelink in this deck. That's really huge. Great stats. 5/5 for 5 with all these keywords. And my other angels get +1/+1 and have lifelink. So we'll be gaining a lot of life if this is on the board. True Conviction. This is a great enchantment. This makes my commander really just murder people outright. It also just makes it, if I have a board pretty much at all, I can't die. I'm getting a ton of life. You're going to hit them for a ton of damage with double strike. If you have, you know, Sword of Feast and Famine, you're going to be, I think, untapping your lands 2 times, but your mana goes away after combat, so it doesn't really matter. Angelic Skirmisher. This is a really good one. This gives my whole board first strike, vigilance, or lifelink. And I do it on each combat. So if I'm blocking, I probably want first strike, so I kill things earlier. And vigilance when I'm attacking, or lifelink, you know. This is the card I mentioned earlier, Elish Norn. This is probably one of the better cards in my deck. This buffs my creatures by so much. And creatures my opponents control get -2/-2 is also great. Let's get into the utility lands I have in my deck right now. We're going to go 3 at a time, just to get a little bit faster, as I see this video is getting a little bit long. I'm sure that these deck tech videos, or whatever we're going to call them in the future, or deck showcases, they might be a little bit longer than my opening videos, so sorry about that. Castle Arvindale makes me tokens. I love making tokens in this deck, just making creatures. Labyrinth of Scophos just gives you more interaction, which I really, really like. I like interaction in decks in general. Interaction's like kind of, in my opinion, like some of the most important part of the game. Most important parts of the game. This one helps me cheat out angels if I attack this turn with a bunch of creatures, and I have a bunch of creatures, so this isn't too hard to do, and I really like that card. Here we go. We got some land ramp, and card draw. Arc of Oraska? Yeah, Oraska. I have a little bit of trouble pronouncing some of these card names, so please make fun of me in the comments if I mispronounce things. Thank you. Ascent. 5 mana, tap to draw a card. Activate if you have the City's Blessing. We have a lot of permanents in Commander. This is easy to do. This is pretty easy to do too. I have a lot of creatures with power 4 or greater, so these cards just kind of help me draw more cards and like fix my hand, which is really good. Terrain Generator is just a classic card. In mono white, it's really good because you're putting basic lands into play, you're ramping, and if I'm just drawing lands the whole time, this helps me get them out of my hand. So I really like that card. Let's see what else we got. We got a Myriad of the Skyruden. This card is amazing. Most of the lands in my deck are plains, so this works really, really well. Flagstones of Tarkir is basically just a plains, but if I board wipe lands and I don't have Avacyn, or someone else does, this is really good because this just gets me a head start on everyone else. Temple of the False God. We want more mana. We want big mana in this deck. This helps us do it. Alright, and we're coming to the end of the video here. I just want to say thank you for watching. Last utility land that we have, Rogue's Passage. Evasion's great in creature decks, especially if you're, attacking a lot. This deck really likes to attack. I mean, I guess that's pretty self-explanatory too. And the rest of the deck is just plains. We got a bunch of plains here. Wish they were cooler looking plains, or I'd show you a bunch of cool lands that I have. But yeah, that's about it. I hope that you guys liked the video and you liked watching, the cards that I have in my collection, what kind of decks I like to make. I'm planning on making videos like maybe twice a week or something, so let me know if there's anything that I could do better in the comments below, I guess. And yeah, have a great day.